Today we are going to be replacing this tie rod end on the drag link of this 2011 Jeep Wrangler JKU. So the reason I'm replacing this tie rod end link, one of the reasons anyway, is because the grease is just coming out of the boot and not staying inside. And I am thinking that the joint in there is just getting old and worn out. And I think I filled this up, maybe a month ago, and it's all just coming out all over the place. This was clean when I put the grease in there, and I didn't go crazy with it. I try not to get a bunch of it squirting out when I put grease into it, just to get it nice, plump, and full. But yeah, it's clearly starting to fail. So it's a cheap part, and really no reason not to replace it. And when I'm driving, I get this weird sensation, really, of the steering wheel just kind of wiggling back and forth. So the Jeep still drives straight. It's not a ball joint issue. It's not a tie rod issue. So I think it's just the tie rod end here at the drag link is wearing out, and then that's causing this like slight back and forth sensation. I have replaced this drag link at tie rod end once before in 2016, so I bought it in 11 brand new, replaced it in 2016. It's 2024 now, so I'm going to replace it again and see if that doesn't resolve my problems. So here on the drag link, I'm going to use my favorite pink nail polish to mark on the turnbuckle some witness marks so that I can get everything lined back up the way it was before I took it apart.
Before I get started, I put some tape here on the steering wheel and on the shroud, and first I unlocked the steering wheel, went side to side as far as I could, and I measured, or I marked that both sides. And then after I replaced this tie rod end link, I want to see how it compares, if there's any difference at all. I'm just curious about that. I also put this piece of tape from the steering wheel onto the shroud. It's nice and flat and straight. And if when I'm all done, if it's not straight anymore, but it's wrinkled, that means I've got the steering wheel not quite centered, and I need to adjust it to get this tape back flat again. I like how the steering wheel's centered right now, and I want to maintain that.
The new tie rod end link is a greasable one from Moog, link in the video description. It comes with a Zerk fitting that you have to install using a 7mm socket. Just get it hand started and then use a ratchet to get it down tight, just tight and snug. You don't need to go overkill on torque or anything like that. Also comes with a new cotter pin and a castle nut, and you'll obviously use that when you install it. So the first step in getting the tie rod end link off is to remove the cotter pin on top of a castle nut, and just squeeze the ends together, push that out or pull it out, and then it's a 13/16 inch socket or wrench to get that castle nut off the top. Now that we've got the castle nut off, we'll take our pickle fork and shove it between the Pitman arm and the rubber boot of the tie rod end link. Give it a few whacks, and the tie rod end link will just drop out of the Pitman arm. If you don't have a pickle fork, you can rent one from places like AutoZone or Riley's or whatever. I'll leave a link in the video description because they're really not that expensive either, if you want to just buy one and have one handy. So obviously it takes a little bit of work to get that down, but the aftermath here, grease everywhere, and it'll probably destroy the end link. So if you think you're going to reuse it, you probably lost that opportunity if you use the pickle fork method. Another way to try to do it is to whack on the side of the Pitman arm, and that hopefully eventually get it to break loose. But the pickle fork works best, especially if you're not going to try to reuse this joint. And now we're going to clean everything up and get to replacing it. So next step in the process, we're going to loosen the turnbuckle nut and bolt. That's a 15mm socket. Get that loose, and then we should just be able to turn the tie rod end link, loosen it, turn it out of the turnbuckle. That'll be a lot of turns, really fine threads, but we'll get it free and we can go get it lined up with the new one. So a key thing is to not let the turnbuckle turn and just thread out the end link. But I did make those nail polish marks on the other side, so if we did move it, we can just go do the realignment before we put this all back together. All right, so I have the two end links side by side, and they're clamped into my little workbench by the Zerk fitting on both, and the two ends are parallel with each other. So if I just measure up from the back from the old one and on the new one, and you can,
if you made your paint marks so you can see them in this view, then you could use that as a reference. I unfortunately did not do that. I could make more paint marks, but actually the rust color is different from where it was inside the turnbuckle and where it wasn't. So I can just go straight across where the color change is, and that's my mark. So that's going to work out just fine. I'm going to use some, like I said, some Teflon tape to mark it over on the new one, and then we'll know how far to put that inside the drag link turnbuckle.
Until it hits the white.
Yep, so now we'll just screw it in until it hits the white,
Okay.
and it's exactly the right spot. But yep. All right, so let's put it up into the Pitman arm. Now that we've got that up there and the nut started, in an ideal world, you would torque this down to 77 foot-pounds, and then the hole in the joint will be showing through one of those slots in the castle nut, and if it's not, you tighten the nut a little bit more until the slots in the hole line up so you can get the cotter pin through.
2.5 minutes.
The likelihood of getting a torque wrench up here is zero,
a little bit more.
unless you have a magical torque wrench. So we are going to use brother-in-law Randy's calibrated torquing arm to get it torqued with the manual wrench to 77 foot-pounds. Make sure it's all lined up, and then we'll put the cotter pin in. Go ahead. All right, I think we got it. Let's try to get that cotter pin in. Nice. So we've got the new tie rod end link installed. That went in great. And looking at the tape up here on the steering wheel, you can see that it is not flat anymore. So we do need to adjust the steering wheel to get the steering wheel centered again. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So first, looking at the turnbuckle on the drag link, you can see that on the tie rod end, or on the drag link end, those witness marks are still lined up. So we did not change the adjustment at all on the drag link side, which is perfect, exactly what we wanted. The end link is exactly the right distance, and it went completely straight up into the Pitman arm, so we know we've got a good distance there. So the only thing we need to do is adjust the turnbuckle itself to pull the steering wheel back to being straight. So we'll loosen the 15mm nut that's on the passenger side of the turnbuckle, and then we'll turn the turnbuckle a little bit to get that steering wheel straight. And just in case there are any haters out there with the whole Teflon tape idea, we did take it off before we adjust the steering, so there's not going to be any Teflon tape in there to worry about. So Carbon's DIY Garage does not have a multi-camera setup, so I didn't get video of the steering wheel moving, but as Randy was turning that turnbuckle from the top down towards the ground, the steering wheel was turning from left to right, and you can see that the tape now is completely flat and flush back to center, back to exactly the same way it was before we started the work. So we're in good shape. Now we'll just go tighten those two 15mm nuts nice and snug to get that secure so the steering wheel doesn't move relative to the drag link. And since you can put a torque wrench on these if you want to, the torque value for these nuts is 26 foot-pounds. So the final step before doing a test drive is to put grease into this joint. It comes with a little bit of grease in it, but it's clearly not full of grease. So we've got our Lucas Red and Tacky. We're going to go ahead and fill it up with grease. There's debate on whether or not do it until it's full and plump, but don't overfill it till it comes out. Other people will say just put grease into it till a little bit starts coming out of the seal. I think for this first run up, we'll probably aim towards nice and plump, but we might go a little bit too far, so we'll just have to see where we stop. So I think we'll call it good there.
Right there?
For now.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is I'll take it and drive it for a bit, and then see how the grease looks later, and then I might add more to it later, but this is a pretty good starting point.
All right, I did that side-to-side wiggle test, and this is the full extent of it, and really there's no difference side to side. I thought initially there was, but I just wasn't really putting as much force into it as I did when I first did this test. So really it didn't make a difference on this wiggling thing. So I'll take it out for a test drive and see if I notice any difference in that slight, I don't know, vibration, shimmying, wiggling that I can only feel and I can't even see in the steering wheel. Maybe it's all in my head. Either way though, that old joint was leaking grease like crazy, so replacing it was necessary, even if it doesn't change anything that I was feeling in the steering.
All right, so I want to say thank you to my brother-in-law Randy for his help today. I actually am recovering from rotator cuff surgery a few weeks ago, so I just did the camera work. He did all the heavy lifting, so thanks a lot. Pretty simple task, and it drives great. It really didn't make much of a difference in that side-to-side motion, but you know, it's still driving great alignment, and everything's good to go. So hopefully the video was helpful. Links for everything in the video description, comments, thumbs up, all that good stuff. And we'll see you next time with some more awesome content. Take care.